So I am Bruce Rosenblatt. I am the owner of Senior Housing Solutions, and I'm going to give you all a lot of great information about the senior housing options in this area and give you a lot of different insight about the different types of contracts and the different types of licensing and everything. So should be very informative. Before I forget, which I might, but if you haven't received a vaccine and you've been frustrated trying to get a vaccine, I do have a source. So, or if you know somebody in your, a neighbor or a friend that's struggling about getting a vaccine, let them know, or give me shoot me an email at bruce@seniorhousingsolutions.net. And I do have a source that can get somebody a vaccine. So, which is great. I'm going to share my screen here and so again, we're going to talk about senior housing in Southwest Florida. I'm Bruce Rosenblatt with Senior Housing Solutions. A little bit about me. If you don't know who I am, I think a lot of people already know who I am, but I've been in the senior housing business for over 30 years, pretty much my entire career. I've held executive positions for some of the leading senior living companies in the country. I've overseen 75 different senior living communities in 14 different states. So I've seen a lot of different types of communities, and I've been involved with many of them. In 2008, I recognized that there was a need, and I realized that this is a big decision, and people were coming to me and saying, I'm thinking about this, and and so in 2008, I formed Senior Housing Solutions, and that's all that I do is help people find senior housing. So that could be independent living, it could be continuing care communities, it could be assisted living, memory care. I've also formed a network of advisors throughout the country. So if somebody's looking for an area outside of this area, I do have a resource of advisors that I can help direct you. So I try to provide advice for people who are looking in Collier and Lee counties. I'm very active in the local community that focuses on seniors. I am a native Floridian. So if you're ever curious what a native Floridian looks like, this is what we look like. And I've lived in Southwest Florida for 29 years. I'm a very active tennis player. I'm a loving husband, and I'm a certified barbecue judge, totally unrelated to senior housing, but I have a lot of fun with my barbecue. And you can't tell because I'm sitting down, but I'm 6'7". So this is probably the biggest question that I get asked, and and if there's something that you want to remember from today's presentation, it's this. It's when should someone consider a senior living community? And I always say that it's better to be 5 years too early rather than 5 minutes too late. And there's just so many times where people get caught short. They put it off. There's probably a million reasons why, people find to not do something. But more importantly, you should try to think about all the reasons why you should do something. And people, I get calls on the weekends and the evenings and the holidays, and they say, Bruce, I listened to you, I attended your seminar, but we weren't ready to do anything. And now I'm in the hospital, or I'm being, discharged, and I need something right away. And, it's really hard to make a decision in a crisis mode, and it's much better to plan ahead. So again, it's better to be 5 years too early rather than 5 minutes too late. I hear this, and I hear this often where I'm never going to need care. It's never going to happen to me. I'm just going to, die someday. I'm never going to need care. And I say that denial is not that river that runs in Egypt. It's the fact that the majority of people are going to need care at some point in their life. According to Business Week, 65% of people over 75 will need long-term care. It's probably higher than 65%, but that's a pretty significant number. Hopefully you're not part of that 65%, but it's probably better to plan ahead that you might be. I hear this as well. We're just going to take care of one another. If my spouse needs care, I'll take care of him or her. and we're just going to take care of one another. So what does that look like? And so, it's important to recognize that, the women here on today's call, you all are going to probably outlive us men, 5 to 10 years longer than us. And so you got to realize that, and that's from the New Orleans Journal of Medicine. So as women, you have to recognize that you're going to live probably longer than us. So what is your plan for the future? What are you going to do as your health starts to change? If you are, a widow and you no longer have a spouse, what are you going to do? What is your plan? And conversely, if you're a husband and you know that your wife is going to probably outlive you, what is your plan to protect her? And I think about my situation with my wife and myself, and I take care of everything around the house. I pay all the bills, and and if something happened to me, or when something happens to me, I think my wife will be lost about how to take care of things. And so these are, I think it's our responsibility as husbands and as spouses to try to look forward and say, what's going to happen down the road? Everything is not going to be status quo. Things are not going to stay the same. So what's going to happen as our health starts to change? And so, and it's usually a win. It's when something happens to one person, what will the other person do? And then, that's a very big question. And what will their life be like? I meet with a lot of people, and, there's, again, it's a lot of things with like a husband and wife. And if the husband passes away, well, all of a sudden the wife now is fully responsible to take care of the house. And, and then if the wife wants to move somewhere, well, now all of a sudden the wife has to figure out downsizing and moving and selling the real estate. And so, these are big things, and it's much better to do something if you can as a couple. And again, in my situation, I handle all the household affairs and the personal finances. And so if something happens to me, what will my wife do? And so, that's a very important thing. And then there are times where, one person handles the financial side in the household, another person handles the social calendar. And so, and I had a recent situation where I had a husband and wife that lived in Marco, and the wife handled all the social activities, and she was sort of the filter. And so unfortunately she passed away, and the husband was just lost by himself, and there wasn't anybody to tell him to take a shower and tell him to shave and change his clothes or do his laundry in his bed. And worse off, he had no filter. And so whatever came into his mind, he would just say it. And so he went and applied at a community and started making some comments about the nurses, and rude comments about the nurses, and they turned him down because he wasn't socially acceptable. So, these are things you'll have to start thinking about, because as people age, there's dementia, and dementia comes in a lot of shapes and forms. And not having sort of a filter is part of that. So important to start thinking about this. So then I hear this as well, I'm just going to take my chances. I'm going to roll the dice. I'm going to take my chances. And I always say, it's much better to be proactive rather than reactive when making an important decision. You don't want to make a decision in a crisis mode. Not a good idea. And do you want your kids to fly down from Minnesota or Michigan to say, this is where you're moving to? Or would you rather choose where you want to live? And I meet with a lot of adult children, and they're involved with the decision with their parents, but it's much better to make that decision yourself rather than having your children make that for you. And no one ever expects to need care, but most people are going to need some level of care in their life. And nursing homes are filled with people who never thought they would end up there. And I can't take you there because of the whole COVID thing, but we could go to a nursing home, and every room everybody would say, I didn't think I would need nursing care, because it's this whole denial thing. So we got to be very careful that denial will come back and bite you. we have a great life here in Southwest Florida. The lifestyle we enjoy down here is great. And so I hear this a lot. I enjoy where I live. I watch the sunsets. I have great neighbors. I can see the dolphins out there every night on the water, and so, we do enjoy where we live. But the question is, how will your life change? And it's not an if, it's when you or your spouse starts needing care. So that's a very big question. And so, like tonight, when you're having your cocktail and happy hour, this is what you all need to start asking yourselves: how will your life change when you or your spouse starts needing care? And so, what happens is that burden, when one person needs care, is placed on the other spouse, and there's a tremendous amount of burden on your spouse and on your family. So it's a tremendous amount of burden that's placed on your family. And let me tell you, if your plan is to move in with your kids, you better let them know that. So, when we get done today on this call, you should give your son or your daughter a call and say, hey, when my health starts to change, I'm moving in with you. And we'll see what they have to say about that, because it doesn't work. And so if you're living in your home, I guess the question you really need to ask yourself is, how can you sustain yourself as you get older? And so, take a look around your home, and how can you sustain yourself as you start to age? I had a client, and that was sort of fixated. She had a very large dining room table, and everywhere we went, she had to bring this dining room table. And unfortunately, she ended up falling. And, because everywhere we went, she couldn't bring this dining room table. And unfortunately, she fell in the middle of the night and was on the ground for hours. And, that dining room table was just a piece of furniture, didn't provide an ounce of care for her. And, your view, you might have a great view from your home right now, but that view isn't going to provide an ounce of care. And so your paradigm needs to shift, because your priorities have to change. And so, will you be able to bring a lot of your furniture? Yes, but you're going to have to downsize, and you can't bring everything. But it's just furniture, and you can't get locked into, I don't want to move because I can't fit my dining room table. I had another gentleman, it was a couple, and he was an engineer, and it was a great guy, and his wife unfortunately had progressive cancer, but he was an engineer, and he read on the internet, and of course you can trust everything you read on the internet, that he needed to be 14 feet from his flat screen television. And so everywhere we went, he brought out his tape measure, and it had to be exactly 14 feet, not 13 feet, not 12 and a half feet, 14 feet. And so there are some price constraints, and so there were some price constraints. So we couldn't, move into all the different options, but everywhere we went, and he ended up not moving to a place because we couldn't find him a place that was exactly, the living room wasn't 14 feet. And his wife's cancer got worse, and he ended up hurting himself because he was being the caregiver. And so, these are real life situations that happen, and these are things you want to avoid. And just get a smaller television, or sit a little bit closer. Don't get locked into these things. And for him, this was his way of denial, and because he just didn't want to do anything. And if you live in your home and you wait, and then you decide to move, you're not going to be in any condition to move, and your options are going to be very limited, and they're going to be more expensive. So I always say that hope is not a strategy. I hope I'm never going to need care. I hope you don't. I hope I don't have a long-term illness or condition. I hope I don't outlive my
He's very
assets.
good, actually. I heard him 2 years ago. Hope is not a strategy, it says.
If anybody can mute
About
themselves,
senior
please.
living.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll be all right at home. Oh, okay, yeah, right.
If you're on this
Thank you for
call,
that.
please mute yourself. Thank you. Let's make sure everybody's got it. All right. So I hope I don't outlive my assets. I hope I'm not a burden to my children. I hope that when I'm ready, I can find exactly what I want. And let me tell you, it doesn't work that way. If you're waiting for a 2-bedroom facing west and you think you're just going to get that automatically, it's not going to happen that way. It totally takes a plan. So I know a lot of people say, is staying in your home the right answer? Is that the right answer? And I know a lot of people think that that's the easy answer, that, I'm just going to stay at home. I'm just going to hire help, and so I want to, kind of take a look at that and what that really looks like. So I have a story. I think it's a very relevant. But if you take a frog, and again, it's just a story. I've never tried this at home, and I'm not some crazy person. But if you take a frog and you put a frog in hot water, the frog will immediately jump out. But if you put a frog in lukewarm water and you gradually turn up the heat on the range, the frog will end up cooking himself to death. The frog doesn't realize that the water around him is getting too hot. And that's what happens when people stay in their homes too long. They don't realize that the water around them is too hot. I have a 92-year-old mother. Yesterday we celebrated St. Patrick's Day, had some fun, but she lives by herself. She has a little dog and she lives by herself. And even though this is what I do for my living, and this is what I've done for 30 years, I can't get my mom to move. And so my mom is adamant about not moving anywhere, but she's 92 years old. She doesn't drive well, and everything around her house is a crisis. And, she gets these repairmen that come in there and they rip her off and they tell her this, that needs to be repaired. And, maintaining a house, if it's a smoke detector or if it's, whatever it is, maintaining a house is hard. And she's lonely, she's not eating right. And, it's just crazy, but around her, water around her is too hot and it's pretty much boiling. And so, again, these are things you need to start thinking about. Is the water around you getting a little warm? And these things you have to be aware of. So is staying in your home the right answer? So again, maintaining a house is not easy, especially as you get older. I look at a house as a living entity. There's always something that has to be repaired. There always has to be something that needs to be repaired, that needs to be maintained. There's always something that it's occurring in your house. And as you get older, simple repairs become big problems. And unfortunately, as you are getting older, you can be more susceptible to abuse and exploitation. These workmen come in there and they will take advantage of you. You got to be very careful of that. Not everybody's as honest as we wish they are. And the thing is that all your homeowner expenses continue. So, you're still going to have to pay all your rent and all your mortgage or your HOA and all those things. You're still going to have to pay all those things by living in your home. Taxes, and nutrition, exercise, socialization, transportation, your personal care, and loneliness. We probably don't talk a lot about loneliness and the importance of socialization. Those become huge issues. And then I would say, like, who's going to change the light bulbs? And I'm fortunate. I'm 6'7", so I can do a lot. I can change a lot of light bulbs. But as you get older, do you really want to be changing the light bulbs in your home? And so I joke about it, but this is it's real, and these things occur. You don't know. I mean, all the times where I go and visit somebody and find out things have been dark because they can't change their light bulbs. So I'm going to bring in help. This is people say, this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to hire help. I'm going to bring in help. And it's a short-term solution. If you just recovering from an illness or surgery, I think home care works. But on a long-term basis, it does not work. You become very isolated in your home. You're not getting out. You're not socializing. It's very difficult to manage. Sometimes the people show up. Sometimes they don't show up. You're going to have different people and different shifts. It could get very expensive, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. It's extremely stressful, probably more stressful on the caregiver or on the spouse, because someone has to manage all this. All of a sudden you're managing people and they sometimes, you become a manager of people, and maybe you can do it today. But again, we're trying to make a plan for the future, and you may not be able to manage this down the road. And it's very hard to find reliable and trustworthy and qualified help. The average, salary or the average hourly rate of a home care person is about $15 an hour. Well, that person can go make $15 an hour working at Target. So would they rather, provide care for somebody, or would they rather, work in a nice, air conditioning environment, over at Target somewhere or Walmart? So it's and then we're talking about the same skill set of people. So very hard to find reliable and trustworthy help. And you might find somebody that you like, then all of a sudden they get another job somewhere else and you lose them. And there's only a limited number of people in this area. It's a huge problem because there's only so many people that can afford to live in our area. As I said, you're going to have different shifts and different aides. So you may have somebody in the weekends, you're going to have somebody in the evenings, you're going to have somebody in the morning. And so, you're dealing with a lot of different personalities and different cultures, and, you may not click with everybody. And, these are basically a stranger in your home. So, do you really, you're not going to have anything in common with these people, and they have a minimum of time that they're going to spend in your home, but you're basically have a stranger in your home and you have nothing in common with them. And, these are not well-educated, well-traveled people. These are people working at $15 an hour. So how does the money work with home care? And so the today's dollars, the minimum cost of home care is about $25 an hour.
Yeah.
So you're looking at this is minimum $25 an hour for a basic aid. And they typically have a 3 to 4 hour minimum. So 4 hours times 25 is $100 a day. If you needed them 7 days a week, that's $700 a week, or $2,800 a month. If you need a higher qualified person, an RN, or if you need somebody on the weekends or holidays, you're looking at almost at $50 an hour. So, you can see how this starts to escalate, and you probably need somebody, if you're probably going to need somebody more than 4 hours a day, you may need somebody for 8 hours a day. So, you can just start multiplying this out and start seeing how expensive it can get. And the thing is that in addition to paying for all that, you still have to pay for all your homeowner expenses. You still got to pay for your food. You still have housekeeping. You got utilities, taxes, HOA, cable, your insurance, your lawn care, your pest control. All of these things continue, and your household repairs. So in addition to paying, at least $2,800 a month, you still have to maintain your house, and you still got to buy your groceries. So why should someone consider a senior living community? And the big thing is peace of mind. Hey, Russ, I'm going to be sending you a recorded version of this. I see you're taking photos, so I'm going to be sending you a recorded version, so you can just focus on what I'm saying. So it's really interesting that when you go and visit and talk to people who have made the decision to move to a senior living community, 99.9% of them will say, best decision I made. I only wish I would have made it sooner. And they're saying that because now they have peace of mind. Now that they all those worries about, all the what if scenarios, they're off their shoulders. So they made this decision, and they'll tell you, best decision I made. I only wish I made it sooner. And I've been in this business for 30 years. And every time I go and visit, my clients, everybody tells me the same thing. And these are highly educated people, and everybody will tell you the same thing. Best decision I made. I only wish I would have made it sooner. Remember, it's better to be 5 years too early rather than 5 minutes too late. And really, by moving to a senior living community, you're protecting your spouse, you're protecting your family, having this maintenance-free living, knowing that, all of your care is going to be, all your maintenance on your apartment is completely included. You don't have to worry about if your cable goes out or if your hot water heater breaks. You just make one phone call and it's taken care of. And, having access to social programs and activities, this is huge. Again, I mentioned about loneliness and the importance of being social. And I think we probably have seen it over the last year about the importance of, having some social outlets. And now that, now we're all getting out a little bit more, it's so refreshing and so important for us to be social with one another. Access to dining services, and this is huge. I enjoy cooking, and I think I'm a pretty good cook. But if you come to my house tonight, we're having chicken, and last night we had salmon. My wife does not have a menu every night that she can choose from, so she can't choose. Bruce, I want the salmon tonight. I want the chicken. I want the pasta, or I want a salad. There's just, we're having chicken tonight. And so what a luxury it is to live in a senior living community where every night you have a menu, and you can have chicken, you can have a steak, you can have, salmon, you can have grouper, you have pasta, whatever you want. So every night you have a menu, and what a great luxury that is. And knowing that you don't have to, run off to Publix and figure out what you're going to cook and go through that whole process. So especially, if you're dining by yourself, cooking for one is very, very difficult, and it's lonely. And so, the dining services, not only are they important nutritionally, but they're important socially. Access to transportation, there could be a point where you're going to decrease your driving. And, it's a little crazy out there right now on the road. And so isn't it great that you can have a transportation to take you to your doctor's appointments or take you to the grocery store? I'm going to the dentist next week, and, I'm having a tooth pulled, and I have to figure out how am I going to get home after, getting that tooth pulled. And wouldn't it be great to have someone to drive me to my dentist and, bring me back after that procedure? Having access to on-site healthcare. Well, this is huge. It's probably the number one reason why someone starts to think about this is to know that they have on-site healthcare. Um, Having lifelong friendships with like-minded people. This is probably one of the things I do best by helping people select a senior living community. I help them match the right senior community with like-minded people. And so, you want to be around people who are just like yourself, and people who are active, who are independent, who are, well-traveled and educated. And so, knowing that you have these lifelong friendships that, yes, you can be private, but also, you don't have to worry about being lonely either. And you really improve your quality of life. If you have all these things from eating better to social programs to not worrying about the maintenance on your home to on-site healthcare, your quality of life improves. And so again, this is where you hear people say, I wish I would have done it sooner. So what are the different options in this area? And so there's three basic categories of senior living communities in this area. There's rental, there's condominium, and there's buy-in, or what we call CCRC. And we're going to talk about each one of these. So in the rental communities, you're going to start off with a non-refundable community fee. It's kind of almost like a security deposit that's non-refundable. So about $3,000 of a non-refundable community fee. And you're going to pay rent. You typically are going to sign an annual lease, and so you're going to pay rent on a monthly basis. And yes, I know people ask me this question: will my rent go up? Typically, it does. Usually, it's cost of living increases, but again, that's where some of my expertise comes in, because there's some communities that are more financially stable than others. But you're going to pay rent. And we'll talk about dollars in a second. Some people like the rental option because it's very flexible and it's not a long-term commitment. So you're not paying this huge entrance fee, so it's very flexible. And so if you're living in a rental community and you all of a sudden want to move back to Ohio, you give them 30-day notice and you're gone. Or if you pass away, your lease automatically terminates. So very flexible in that regard. So you're going to start off with independent living, and then as you need care, you're going to pay for higher levels of care. So get independent living, and then as you need higher levels of care, you're going to pay out of pocket for your higher levels of care. So the condominium, so just like you have right now, you own something, title is in your name. So this is a real estate transaction, so title is in your name. And there's pros and cons of real estate. Right now we're in a phenomenal real estate market, and things are, there's a huge demand on real estate, and so the real estate's increasing, the value of real estate. But if we were talking 2008, well, there'd probably be some negatives. Probably the price went down. But some people like the fact that they have equity and that they have appreciation of their ownership. And so you're going to buy your unit. So just as you own your home or your condo right now, you're going to own that, and then you're going to be paying an ongoing monthly fee. So which would include HOA as well as the membership. There could be condo assessments. So there could be assessments along the way. And then again, you're going to, as you need care, you're going to pay extra for your care as you need it. So when I got in this business, a long time ago, 30 years ago, and I saw the acronym CCRC, and I thought that stood for Country Club Retirement Community. And in this area, that's really what they are. And these are the big players in the area, but actually CCRC stands for Continuing Care Retirement Community. CC, so Continuing Care Retirement Community. And so again, these are the big players in town. And there's a trend right now to rename CCRCs life plan communities. So you might see an ad or see a television commercial and they call themselves a life plan community. It's the same thing. It's just the marketers got a hold of it and they thought life plan sounds better than CCRC, but basically the same thing. And so the deal with the CCRC is that you're not buying real estate, even though you might think you are because of the price, but you are buying a contract that provides care and services over your lifetime. So again, there's a contractual obligation to provide care and services over your lifetime. And so you're going to pay an entrance fee, and this will decline in value over time. And so we'll talk numbers in a second. So you're going to pay an entrance fee, and then you're going to be paying an ongoing monthly charge. So you're going to start off with an entrance fee, and then you're going to be paying a monthly charge. The key thing with the CCRC is that there's going to be a medical and a financial acceptance criteria to move in. And this is where being 5 years too early rather than 5 minutes too late is a critical component, because the medical is where people get caught short. And I hear this often where people say, I'm moving to this community. I know it's got a great reputation. My friends are moving there, or I'm moving there. All my friends are very happy there, and this is where I want to move to. But all of a sudden the community looks at your medical and they say, no, you represent too much of a risk for us. And so, the good communities are very strict on the front end, because that, you almost want that, because that's what assures that these communities are attracting, more active and independent people. And so, you just got to recognize that there's going to be a hurdle out there, and that's going to be the medical acceptance. There's also going to be a financial. So you're going to have to, show them that you can financially afford to live there. And as a general rule, you should have about 2.5 to 3 times whatever the entrance fee is. So if the entrance fee is $500,000, you should have in total assets at least $1 million, total assets. Not that you have to give them all that, but that's what they're looking for in order to qualify. So breaking down the different options. So in the rental community, again, you start off with an independent living. So just as you are right now, it's independent living. You come and go as you please. You have your car, you entertain. It's independent living. And so it's independent living plus. So there's independent living with different services. So maybe there's some dining services, and there's housekeeping, and there's maintenance. So it's independent living with some extra services. Then if you start needing extra help, medical help, then they have on-site assisted living. So if you need somebody to help you in the shower or take your medications, that would be more assisted living. And then there are some rental communities that offer memory care. So if you're becoming more forgetful and you start needing more of a supportive environment, that would be memory care. And then the condominium, again, you start off independent living just as you are right now, and then you could progress to assisted living. In a CCRC, you start off independent living, you have assisted living, skilled nursing, so 24-hour nursing, as well as memory care. So a little bit more comprehensive in the CCRC, but again, you're going to be paying for that, and it may not be for everyone. So financially, how they look, the rental communities, you're going to pay a monthly fee. And in this area, the least expensive starts off at about $1,600. That would be probably a small little studio on the East Trail. But the monthly fee goes from about $1,600 probably to about $5,000. So there's sort of a spread depending upon obviously the community and the location, but the size of the apartment. And this is based on single occupancy. So if you're a couple, you'd be paying a bit more. The condominium, they start off about $250,000. They go up to about $1 million. And the monthly fee for one is about $1,900 a month. And the CCRCs, they start off at about $400,000. They go up to about $2.5 million. And then your monthly fee starts off at about $3,000 a month, goes to, probably $3,000 to $9,000, just depending upon the community. So quite the spread of pricing. The CCRCs have gotten a little creative, and there was a time where some people, say they wanted a refund of their entrance fee. So the $400,000 of a CCRC might be, say, a one bedroom. But let's just say, you wanted to know that there's something given back to your estate. So the community might offer a 50% refund. So instead of paying $400,000, you might spend $600,000, but 50% of that would be given back to your estate once you moved out or once you passed away. Some communities even offer a 75 or even an 80% refund. So, but each op, if you go for an 80%, let's just say on that same one bedroom, instead of $400,000, it might be $700,000 going in. So you're paying an upcharge up front in today's dollars in order to have something given back to your estate later on. So it all depends on your situations, and I'm more than happy to sit down with you to figure out what is the best option. But it's you may want to talk to your financial advisor as well. But I had a couple, and they said, I know they're going to move to a community, and they know if something happens to one, the other is going to move back up north. Well, in that case, I would say, a higher refund plan is a pretty good option because you're going to move out. However, if you know you're going to live in this community for the next 15, 20 years, well, you may want to come at the lowest price because your investments by leaving them alone probably would equal that greater refund. So it does get a little complicated, and again, I'm more than happy to go through that with you. And just to kind of, again, this is based on single occupancy. It's not that a couple would pay double. So like in a CCRC, the second person fee is about $20,000 entrance fee, and about $1,500 to $2,000 on top of the monthly fee. So you don't pay an exact double amount, but there is a fee for the second person. There are specialty communities out there. So when people wait too long or they don't get qualified, there are freestanding assisted living communities, and they start off about $3,500 a month. And in assisted living, assisted living is not set up for couples. This assisted living is usually set up for one individual, and that runs about $3,500 a month. There are freestanding memory care facilities, and they start off about $5,000 a month. And skilled nursing in this area runs about $12,000 a month. probably more like 15,000 a month. And so you can start seeing how this starts to escalate things. And what's important to recognize, especially in the assisted living, is that 3,500 in assisted living that pays for your room and board. When you start needing assistance with med management or help in the shower or help transferring, all of those things, where they call those levels of care, and they kind of go on a point system. And so you could be a level 1, a level 2, and some communities go all the way up to a level 6 or a level 7. And each level is about $800. So instead of paying $3,500, you could easily be paying $5,000 or $6,000 a month based on your level of care. And so it's important to recognize that. You got to be a little careful with that, because sometimes they might slap you with a level 3 and you think you're a level 2. And again, it's helpful to have 6'7" Bruce in your corner to help fight for you on that. So kind of going into a little bit more depth on CCRCs, there are 3 different types of contracts in the state of Florida. There's a type A contract, there's a type B, and there's a type C. So a type A contract, you're going to pay a higher entrance fee than the type B and C. So your entrance fee is going to be a little bit higher. The key thing with the type A contract is that your monthly fee basically will remain the same through the health continuum. So if you're paying $5,000 a month in independent living and you need assisted living, or if you need skilled nursing, you're still basically paying, right around the $5,000 a month. So it's a very conservative way to go. It's a very predictable way to go, because you know that your monthly fee is basically going to stay the same as you go through the continuum. Again, will it go up with cost of living? Yes, but the majority of it is going to stay the same through the healthcare continuum. The key thing with the type A is that they're going to have the strictest medical. Because your monthly fee is going to stay the same, they're going to be very careful who they accept on the front end. And the type A is going to be the hardest to get into. So if you have a pre-existing condition, you may not be able to get into a type A. On the other side, if you're looking for an active independent community, a type A might be a better way to go. There is a modified B contract, and they include assisted living and memory care. So again, your monthly fee will basically stay the same as you need assisted living memory care, and then they offer skilled nursing at a discount. There's the standard B, and I know this gets a little confusing, but it's important just to follow along. There's the standard B contract, and they will provide a discount off the street rate for your care. So you will, if the person coming off the street was paying $500 a day for nursing care, they may offer it at a discount at $300 a day. So that's the standard type B. And then there's the type C contract, and the type C has the lowest entrance fee of all. However, as you need care, you're going to pay per diem for your care. So you're going to come in at the lowest price, but as you need care, you're going to have to pay extra out of pocket for your care. And this is a very important part of this, because especially if you're a couple, if you both move into independent living and one person, let's just say you're paying $6,000 in independent living, and then one person needs assisted living, well, then your monthly fee, you're basically going to be paying the $6,000 over here, and you're going to be paying the $6,000 over for assisted living. Or God forbid you need skilled nursing, you're going to be paying $6,000 over here and $15,000 over there. So you just have to be very careful, understanding that you're going to be out of pocket for your care. Because of that, because of the type C, they basically have no medical acceptance. And so if you have a pre-existing condition and you weren't accepted in a type A or B, you could get into a type C. The other flip side of that, if you're looking for active independent communities, because there's no medical acceptance, you really don't know if that's going to be the type of people moving in there. So just a little bit more in depth on this. There are different types of assisted living licenses, and I'll kind of go through this quickly. There's a standard license, and the standard license provide basic assistance with daily activities. They only allow you a one-person assist. So if that's one person on your arm, it's helping you out of bed. There's what we call an LNS license, which stands for Limited Nursing Services, and that they're able to provide a higher level of assistance. Many of the memory care facilities carry the LNS license. And sort of the gold standard is what we call an ECC license, which stands for Extended Congregate Care. And so that allows the assisted living the ability to provide nursing services and total assistance with personal care services in this residential environment. So, it's a major trend within our industry about this ECC license, because instead of someone moving over to a nursing home, they're able to stay a lot longer in assisted living. And the key thing is that you're able to have up to a 3-person assist. And, here I'm 6'7". I'm probably going to need at least a 2-person, maybe a 3-person assist if I need help getting out of bed. I'm not a 1-person assist, that's for sure. And so, that's huge, having a 3-person assist. So the ECC is something really to look at when you're going through this. If you have long-term care insurance, I just want to kind of touch on this. The time to review your policy is yesterday. Take your policy out, understand what your benefits are, understand what it covers. Probably when you bought your long-term care policy, they didn't have what we have today called assisted living. It's probably called residential care. But you want to call your agent, call your company, and find out exactly what it covers and what it doesn't cover. And so very, very important to do this now. You don't want to wait for this crisis for your kids to come in to figure out what is the assisted living cover or what is the policy cover or not cover. And usually there's a trigger event that actually activates your policy, just like any type of insurance. You have to, in order for you to file a claim, you're going to have a triggering event. And most policies require that you need assistance with 2 or more activities of daily living, or what we call ADLs. So if you need help with your medications, or you need help in your shower, or you need help transferring, these are what we call ADLs, or activities of daily living. And again, most policies require that you need 2 or more of these. And many policies have a deductible period. Could be 90 days, it's up to 180 days. But again, take your policy out. I'm more than happy to sit down with you and go through that with you. I'm not an insurance guy, but I've been around long enough to understand what it covers and what it doesn't cover. So what do you do, if senior living is not for you? What are my options? And I say, develop a realistic game plan. Sit down with your spouse and, develop this game plan and be realistic. Try to take denial out of the picture and be realistic with it. So what are you going to do as you get older? And that's part of your game plan. And maybe you need to do some modifications within your residence, or maybe you need to move to a 1st floor and not have stairs. So take a look around your home. There are specialists out there that could help you with the age-in-place modifications. Maybe you need a wider doorway. Maybe you need a walk-in shower instead of a bathtub. Are there tripping hazards around your house? So maybe there's certain things you could do around your house to make it safer. And really have the talk with your family. Have that honest talk. It might be a hard conversation, but have that chat with them. And again, if your plan is to move in with them, when we get done with this call today, you should call them and let them know, because let me tell you, from personal experience, it does not work. And it puts a lot of stress on your relationship, and it's not a good thing to do. And don't do that to your kids, but let them know if that's your plan. And there's a lot of in-home services, transportation, meal delivery, bill paying, home care, and there's no reason why you have to wait for a crisis to happen to try these things out. Have you tried Uber? Have you tried having meals delivered? These are things you can try these things out now. there are some home health care companies that they will meet with you and kind of develop a file. And so you can do your screening process now. And then so if you ever needed home care, you would know which company to call, and they would know a little bit about you. Um, kind of going back to my story about the frogs, you got to recognize when things are getting a little warm and when that water around you is starting to get a little hot. So pay attention when things start to unravel. These medical alert systems are great. These fallen I can't get up buttons are wonderful. They're very advanced now. They'll sense if you fell, and they have GPS, so they know where you are. But this is a great investment for $30 a month. Make sure all your legal and your financial affairs are in order. If you're going to stay at home and this is your plan, make sure you got everything set in place, and make sure you have a healthcare surrogate, and make sure you got people, make sure you got everything in line that you need to have. And it doesn't hurt to get your name on a waiting list somewhere. There are places where you can get your name on a waiting list and not put any money down, or you could put your name on a waiting list and not be obligated to a certain time frame or a certain apartment. So you can sort of bubble up to the top as time goes by. So it's not a bad idea, even though you might think you're going to stay in your home, things change. And wouldn't it be better to be in the catbird seat on a waiting list that you can just, then all of a sudden you can move somewhere. And keep my number handy. You're probably going to need me if you decide you're going to stay in your home, but keep my number handy. I am available pretty much 24/7. And so, my number is 239-595-0207. But, put my number in your iPhone, put me in your Rolodex, and because you're going to need me at some point. So speaking of me, what is a senior housing advisor and what do we do? And so, you wouldn't buy a house without a home inspection. I wouldn't think you would. So why would you decide to move to a senior living community without knowing as much as you can about it? And so this is what I do. I am the senior housing inspector, and I stay current with all the different places in our area. There's basically 100 in this area. And I look beyond the fancy decor, and I evaluate communities on quality of care and services, prices, availability, financial stability, which is huge, resident satisfaction, staff turnover, operational issues, COVID cases. You got to stay current with all that. And I know the good and the bad and ugly of every one of these different communities. And if you go out by yourself, they're not going to tell you about their financial stability. They're not going to talk about their operational issues. And so, you need an objective perspective on all this. It's just too big of a decision to do it alone. And basically, because I've been in the business for so long, I know what you don't know. This is my career. This is what I've done. And, so you might have your expertise in your business, but this is all that I do is senior housing. And so I am pretty much the foremost expert on senior housing in the area. And I know the inner workings of these different places. And most time my services are free, and everybody loves free. And so if you haven't done a lot of research, or if you're just starting out, or if you haven't been in touch with a community in the last 6 months, then my services are 100% free. So all of my insight, all my knowledge is 100% free. So again, but if you've been in touch with communities within the last 6 months, and you want my insight, I'm available to be hired on a consultant basis, or you may just want to wait a few months before contacting that place again. But the 6 months is sort of that window of being a free service. And let me tell you, if you go on the internet, there's a lot of internet companies, and there's one company called, you've probably seen the commercials, called A Place for Mom, and that they're based in Tennessee, and they have no knowledge. They don't have firsthand knowledge. They don't have boots on the ground knowledge of the different places in this area. They're going to send you a list of different places, but they don't know the good and bad and ugly of them. And so there are a lot of internet-based companies, and I know we're all sort of internet-based, and this is sort of how we're, kind of how we're trained these days. But you want to resist doing that, because a place for mom, what they will do is they will spray your name around the entire area. And now you're going to be getting bombarded with phone calls for forever and ever. The worst thing that a place for mom does is that they sell your name. And so there's a little line that says, we basically, we own you, but they will sell your name and your contact information to third parties. So you're now going to get phone calls from hearing aid companies and emails from hearing aid companies and, mobility devices and anything you can think of, financial advisors. You're just going to be bombarded with information, because now they own you. So you really want to resist that, and try to use a local person who has local knowledge. I have developed a comparison worksheet. And so if you are, it's a great worksheet. It kind of ties back into the presentation, but it's a worksheet that you would, kind of reference as you visit the different communities, and you kind of fill it in as you get as you go. For example, there's a line item about the different types of assisted living license, or the different types of contracts. So these are things that might trigger as you go and visit the different communities to ask these different questions. And so if you're interested in this worksheet, email me and I'll send you a link to that. And my email is bruce@seniorhousingsolutions.net. Again, I mentioned this in the very beginning, but if anybody is struggling about getting a vaccine shot, I do have a resource for vaccine shots. And so, or if you have a friend or a neighbor that is struggling and going through the whole Publix deal, email me and I will send you a link of a place or a source for COVID shots. So something to consider: doing nothing is actually doing something, but the end result may not be what you want. Thinking nothing will change is not being realistic. And people don't plan to fail, they fail to have a plan. So with that, I'm going to open it up for questions. And if you want to just unmute yourself or raise your hand. Anybody with questions?
Could you provide your email address again, please?
Sure, it's bruce@seniorhousingsolutions.net. And I'm going to send you, I'm recording this, and so I'm going to send you a recorded version of this, and that will come from my email as well. So you'll have all my information.
Okay.
Yes, Bob?
What is the colonnade? Is that what type is that?
So I'm gonna hold off on talking specific communities. I don't think that's fair to market one community or the other. But offline, if you want to, give me a call or shoot me an email, I'm happy to do that with you.
Okay.
Bruce, how does one access the criteria for the medical entrance into these places?
So that's a great question. And so it's not a one size fit all. So every community is different, and so each community handles their medical differently. Some do a one-on-one assessment, and they put a lot of weight on that one-on-one assessment. Some people look pretty heavily on the medical information that your doctor provides. And also it does vary on, if it's a type A or type B or type C contract. But it does vary from community to community. It also varies on basically the success of that community. There are some communities that are, may be a little bit more lenient because they are they're trying to fill up their community. And so, that could be a sales decision rather than an operational decision. But there's not a one size fit all answer to that.
Another medical question, if I may. Once you sign up for a longer term skilled care, as an example, are you obligated to use their care only, or do you still have choice in your own doctors and your own hospitals?
So that's a good question. So if you're living at a CCRC where your care is part of the obligation or a part of the contract, you're talking about assisted living, memory care, and skilled nursing. So that would be their facility. However, that doesn't include, going to your own doctor. You continue going to your own doctor. You can, you would go to your own doctor as you currently go to your own doctor, because that's covered by your major medical insurance, and that's your decision. There are many communities that have doctors that come visit, and you're probably welcome and probably encouraged to use those on-site doctors, because it sure is convenient, if you're not feeling well, to go see an on-site doctor. But there's no obligation at any of the different communities to use their on-site people. The other thing to kind of keep in mind is that with the CCRCs, and I know we're approaching April 15th, which is tax time, depending upon if it's an A, B, or C contract in the CCRCs, there is a tax deductible portion of that. So the communities, especially the established communities, will be able to tell you what the percentage is. And so there's a percentage of the entrance fee, and there's a percentage of the monthly fee. And so, which is, very significant, because as much as, 20 to 25% of your entrance fee is considered a medical expense. Now, not everybody should, claim that as a deduction, and you probably want to talk to your accountant about all that. But it's good to know that it's out there, that there is this potential tax deduction out there. So I appreciate everybody being part of this call. I know that when you first registered to be part of this seminar, I asked a couple of questions about like where you are in your research, and I know a lot of people are just starting out, or they're unsure about their timing, and and I'm more than happy to sit down with you, or if you feel more comfortable, to do a Zoom or a conference call, just to kind of help you develop this plan. I meet with a lot of people who are, thinking about the future, and, which is fine, because, it's more important to have this plan ahead rather than, trying to do something in crisis mode. So kind of keep that in mind. Know that I'm available. Know that I can help you. And I also appreciate any referrals. So if you have friends who are starting to talk about this, please tell him, hey, I know this guy, he knows this stuff, and he's more than happy to help you. And typically I will meet with people one-on-one. I prefer meeting people one-on-one. I haven't been vaccinated, but I prefer doing that, so I can understand your lifestyle and how you live. And it's very important to me to, I think that's part of what I do, is getting to know people and helping them. So with that, I want to thank you all for being part of this. Our next webinar will be April 15th. It's tied into tax day, and I have a financial advisor. His name is Eric Martin. He's going to talk about your financial health. And so I kind of tied it into April 15th, even though that tax day is probably going to get moved out to May or something. But I thought it was helpful to have someone talk about your financial health. So hopefully I'll see you then. Feel free to reach out to me. Again, I'll be sending you a recorded version of this webinar. I truly appreciate everybody being part of this, and thank you all, and stay well. So take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.